Hello everybody, Adrian here. Great to see you on this call. For those on the live call on Zoom and also for those listening in and watching in on Facebook. So I'm live streaming and this is also be recorded. So for those that don't get to hear it all or couldn't get on here, you can really enjoy the recording as well. So the topic for today's webinar, getting back on track. So for some people it's about getting on track in the first place, and for others it's about getting back on track because there's a sense of not staying on track. So a lot of my work in my psychotherapy, my coaching, my counseling is about supporting people, encouraging people, and sometimes positively challenging people to get back on the rails, to get back on track, because we can come off in so many ways: physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and many other ways. And that includes myself too. I often have those moments or days or weeks or sometimes months where I'm feeling I'm not on track and I have to dig deep to get back on track. So what I like to do on this webinar is share some processes, some tools, some resources, some ideas, some thoughts on how we can get back on track if we're feeling we're not on track. So if you would grab some paper, grab a pen, so that you can take down some notes. Because often what happens when we jump on a webinar, jump on a call, and we listen to somebody, we engage with somebody, it's easy to forget what was said. It's easy to forget what perhaps we promised ourselves or agreed with ourselves to do in the process. You know, I promised to get up every morning at 7 a.m. and meditate, and then tomorrow forget to meditate, and then you're back in the loop, staying off track. So a lot of this is about committing to the journey, committing to oneself, committing to being back on track. Because I have a lot of conversation, I had a couple of conversations with some people yesterday about where they're at in their health and they weren't feeling so good. And I said, what are you doing to get back on track with your health? Because if you're doing nothing, you're not going to get back on, or you may not be doing the right thing to get back on, or you may not be putting the right energy in to get back on track. So a lot of it is about finding the right resource, the right tool, the right people, the right person, the right timing, the right moment to support the journey. So if you've got your pen and paper, this is good for you to take your notes for yourself. What is it you're doing for you right now to get on track? So the first thing to do is to identify where we're not on track. What's going on internally? What's going on in the soul? What's going on in the mind? What's going in the thoughts? I'm not feeling on track because dot, dot, dot. And often it's I'm not on track because of her or him or they or this situation. And it's easy to project that outside of ourselves. And sometimes that can be slightly true. But most of the time it's about engaging with ourselves. Engaging with ourselves. What can I do to get back on track? Yes, you may need some support of others, some encouragement from others, but essentially it's about us getting ourselves back on track. But what threw us off in the first place? Let's identify that. I'm not on track because. I'm not on track because I've just had a huge challenge in my life and it's really thrown me. I'm not quite sure where I'm going anymore. I'm all over the place, feeling lost, feeling sad, feeling depressed, feeling lonely, feeling upset, feeling resentful. There's many feelings And this is the key I want to get to. If you're not on track, find the emotion, find the feeling of why you're not on track, because that's what's generally going on. There's a sense of something. If you can identify that firstly, a lot of the work is done. And that may take a while to go into that realm. Where am I off track? And for many of you, you know what being on track feels like, looks like, smells like, tastes like. So it's about getting back on there. And then what's it going to take to get back on? What are the resources? What are the tools? What's the mindset to get ourselves back on track? I know for myself, I've had a probably wobbly start to the year. I moved across to the UK from Australia. Some unfortunate things happened. I went into a bit of a lull, a bit of a dip. Came off the rails a little bit, came off the track a little bit in a few little areas of my life. When I got the resources, got the tools, got the support, got my therapy, had the people around me. I knew where to go and what to do because I've got the toolkit to do it. And some days, yes, I forgot. And some days I went into a lull. And then I built that back up again. I used the tools, I used the resources. I shared with people around me that I could step into and talk to and be with. And then, not slowly, but quite quickly, I got myself out of that, got myself back on track again. Because I had the resources, I had the tools, I had the support, I had the mindset, I had the commitment, I had the desire. And that's where I want to start. I want to start with this word desire. Desire. I do a lot with vision boarding, or what I call desire boarding, because it's more than just visioning. It's actually the desire for something, desire to change, the desire to receive. So what are you desiring in your life right now? What does getting on track look like to you? Because if you don't desire it, if you don't really want to get back on track, from the depth of your soul, from the depth of your being, the chances are you won't. So I want you to write down in big letters on your piece of paper the word desire. What is it I desire to help me to get back on track again in my life? And then you can write physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, or a combination of those things. Or it might be something else. It might be in relationship, it might be financial. It might be in your vocation. It could be many, many things that where you're feeling off track. But get clear on it. I have a saying that when you name it, you can tame it. You can deal with it. And it's not elusive. Then it's really clear of what it is we're dealing with. So get that clarity for yourself. What am I desiring? And what way do I want to get back on track? And when you have that written down, you can start to get a sense of what are my resources now? What do I need to do to support this journey? And there's one key thing I share in nearly all personal development work. And if you're not doing it already, I would suggest perhaps that you do it. And that's called meditation. Yep, meditation. I've been meditating now for 30 years, about 22 or 23 years, quite seriously. And it's my key resource. my key resource, my key tool, my go-to place when I'm feeling a bit down, when I'm feeling off track. I just drop into that space. And sometimes it's not easy to do so, particularly when I'm not feeling so great about what's going on or about myself. But I urge myself to that place. I remind myself to come back to that meditative space. And if you're new to meditation, then you can check it on my website under my media page, a few meditations. You can contact me and I can support you in getting your meditation practice happening, because it is a practice. Every day is a meditation practice. Some days it's easy, some days it's not. But the discipline to go there every day really, really helps. Because that is about being on track. When I'm in my meditation space, I'm on track for my meditations. So what else do I do for myself to get myself back on track? And this may help you too. There's some suggestions. So I reach out when need be to some close people that I work with, that I trust, my therapists, a few friends. And sometimes it is about getting into that therapy space and undoing what needs to be undone, finding what needs to be found. So I'm lucky to have a couple of therapists that I use, and then some good friends that I can turn to and have the conversation with and get support from. So that's a great resource. One does have to be cautious of sharing with friends, because if you keep telling the same old story, same old story, same old story about why you're stuck, eventually perhaps the engagement won't be as strong, perhaps their listening won't be as intent, because sometimes people get a bit fed up with our story, particularly if we stay in the victim space, if we're not doing anything about it. So one of my key phrases, and I love to use this with friends, is, what are you doing about it? So if they come to me and said they're struggling, and I think this is a great thing for a friend to say, is, what are you doing about it right now? And sometimes they look at me astonished and say, what do you mean, Adrian? And I say, well, what are you doing? What resource do you have right now? What support do you have right now to get yourself out of where you're at? Coming back to that conversation I had yesterday with a couple of people about their illnesses, they were complaining that they weren't feeling well. And I said, what are you doing about it? I've been to see the doctor. I've got, a couple of pills, or I've got this, or I've got that. But is it really getting to the core of what's going on? Because that's the only way to shift things. If you're not feeling well, if you're feeling ill, go to the core, get it really fixed. Go and get the very things that you know are going to fix it. Stop skirting around the edges. And that's about getting back on track again. And that's not always easy, because sometimes we have to go in and face a few things. But there are some things you can do, some things that I do, that can help me to get back on track. So that's a good encouraging word. What are you doing about it? So my question to you right now, if you're off track, if you're not feeling good, what are you doing about it? And hopefully, after listening in and watching in here, you will do something about it. This will encourage you to go and make the change, to find that desire to get back on track again. So some other things I do, I love going into nature. I find just walking in nature, walking along a river, walking in the bush, walking on the beach, it restores my soul, it restores my sense of myself, my sanity. So I'm a go-to nature person. And I've got some very favourite spots. Now I'm in Devon, I love to go up on the moor to Dartmoor. And it's beautiful up there, such a deeply spiritual place. I take my didgeridoo, I go and sit on the moor, I play my didgeridoo, I do my meditations, I do some howling, I do some yelling, I do some screaming, whatever needs to be done. But it's a very special place for me. And when in Australia, got some very special places too. So where's your go-to place if you're going to find that place in nature? And like myself, I have the didgeridoo that I turn to, I play because it makes me feel good, brings me back into alignment. So is there something you can use too? Have you got a musical instrument? Perhaps you write poetry. Perhaps you are a writer. And journaling. I've actually created a journal that you can use called the 10 Life Aspects. Go to my website, go to the store, and you can download a free printable copy of the journal, the Where Am I Right Now journal. So you can do that. So journaling is a great way. It's a great way to reflect and to see what's actually going on. So in my journal, I've got the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and 6 other aspects of life. And that way you can spotlight what's actually going on by journaling. It's a great resource. And I suggest journal in the evenings after your day so you know what's actually happened. It's hard to journal in the morning when you don't know what's happened. So journal in the evening. So great resources: meditation, going into nature, getting the people around you to support you, doing some journaling, doing some writing. They are great resources. And there may be some other things for you too. For some people I work with, some of the clients I work with, they light a candle and they sit with a candle and they put music on and they just breathe into that for a while and just sit and be and get a sense of what's happening for me right now. Where am I right now in my life? Where am I right now being off track? What do I need to get back on track? For some people it's having a really good hot or cold shower and getting changed in some new clothes and feeling different to get back on track. Just a little side story. Many years ago I was working in Byron Bay with a lady, a client. She'd moved up from a city into Byron Bay, loved photography. She wanted to do some photography work, but she found it really hard to get out of the surf because Byron Bay is a hard place to get out of once you're in the ocean. And she realized if she got up in the morning and just sort of put the bikini on and got the surfboard and went off, that was one thing. But coming back into that mindset of getting back on track to be professional, to get back into her work again, she simply had a hot shower and put the right attire on, the right clothes on that represented that for her. And that was a way for her to get on track. So sometimes, having a change of attire, change of clothes is a great way to get back on track again. So maybe that's something for you too. So getting back on track. So where are you right now? After what I've spoken now for a few minutes, you've probably got a bit of a sense, hopefully, of where you're off track. You may have written down some resources of what you need to do to get back on track. You've written down that desire. You've got a few things written down. And then the question then is, do you have the commitment? Do you have the will to do this? Because this is one of the biggest things. Committing to the process, committing to the meditation, committing to the journaling, committing to having somebody to call. Are you committed? Can you make an agreement with yourself? So a great way to do that. Sometimes it's about getting witness with somebody and saying, hey Bob, hey Jane, I'm committing to getting back on track again and I want you to witness that. But if it's just you, can you have an agreement with yourself? Adrian, I'm making a commitment with you from my deeper soul, from a mindset, to get back on track again in this area of my life, because right now I'm feeling I'm not fully on track with it. Then I make that agreement with myself. I write that in my journal and I commit to it as much as I can. And some days I'm going to wake up and that mindset, that chattering monkey in my mind is just going to say, stay in bed, don't commit, You don't have to do this. Nobody's watching, nobody's listening. And it's easy to roll over and stay under the doona and not do anything. But when I remember that commitment that I've made to myself, I force myself out. And it's a great way to do it. So one way I do that, I'm also a runner, and I run a lot of my issues out. I put my running shoes on, put my shorts on, put my t-shirt on, and I take off. And I run and I run and I run, a bit like Run, Forrest Gump. Might be the namesake, Adrian Hanks. Tom Hanks was the actor in that, Forrest Gump. And running is a great resource for me because it makes me know that I'm committed to something, gives me the stamina. And while I'm running, I can let things go. I can start to contemplate the things I need to do to get back on track again. So running is great. And if you're not a runner, maybe walking, as I say, walking in nature. So finding those tools for oneself is really, really, really important. So finding that commitment. And a lot of that is to do with the mindset, to do with that subconscious mind. So to keep reminding the subconscious mind, to keep reminding ourselves of what we're going to do, it's good to do the visuals. So you might want to write something on a piece of paper and put it on the fridge, put it on the wall, put it on the bathroom mirror, just to remind yourself of what you're doing. I'm getting back on track in this area of my life, and this is what I'm going to do today. This is my commitment. ... And stick it up somewhere. Put it on your phone, put it on your computer, put it in the bathroom. To make it happen. And I mentioned before, a lot of it is about staying in that victim mentality. Staying in that poor me mentality. I can't do this mentality. And we get what we call a secondary gain often when we're in that space, because we get attention, or we get whatever gain it is that we get by staying in that position in life. So we have to let that go sometimes. Let it go. Can I let it go? Can I let it go? Or am I going to hold on to it like a dog in a bone? So letting go is a huge one. Letting go of the situation, letting go of the story is a big one. I'm attached to a few little stories. I have an agreement with myself and with a few friends and with some social groups and with my partner. I only tell the story twice, maximum twice. And then we have agreement, if we hear that I'm telling that story for the third time, Adrian, we've heard that story before. And then I stop telling the story because then it takes me out of victim space. So this is a great one to bring into your life. Stop telling the story. Tell it twice to the same person and then stop. It's a really challenging one because I find myself telling myself the same story sometimes as well in my mind, and I have to tell myself, Adrian, stop that story. Same story. Let it go, let it go, let it go. So there's a real art in that, real practice in that. Letting go of the story. Stop telling the same story. Because if you keep telling the same story over and over and over and over again, nothing really changes. Particularly those blame stories. He, she, they, because that's what often keeps us off track. So letting the story go, letting the blame go, and using that as a practice. So that's a really challenging one, I'm telling you, really, really challenging to let that old story go. But when one does, wow, liberation, absolute sense of liberation and moving on. So that mindset, that's the one we have to conquer. Getting out of the victim space, getting out of the story space, finding the resources, finding the tools, finding the right support within and externally with some friends or some professionals, and getting back on track. And what you'll find, and I share this with many people I work with, is if you think of the road that we travel, then we have a bit of a dip. We can go right down deep sometimes into those furrows. And sometimes it can take months, weeks to get out of that furrow, to get back up on the road, back on track in life again. But the more we do this work, what I find is we don't go quite as deeply into the furrow. We don't come off track as much, and we get back on track quite quickly. Particularly if you've been doing this work for, several years. It's like, whoop, I'm off track. Whoop, I'm back on. Whoop, I'm off track. Whoop, I'm back on. So it is about committing to the work. And the more you use the resources, the more you use the tools, the more you have the commitment, the more time you can stay on track in life, whatever that means for you. But you have to get clear on what that is for you. What does on track mean for you? So please write all this down. It may take you some time. You may not just get it all done in these moments. So you can listen to the recording, go back over this again, get some clarity for yourself, and really get a deeper understanding of what it means to be on track in life. What's Adrian's track? What's your track? Because it's often been shared, isn't it? It's not so much about the destination, it's about the journey. And if we're on track for our journey through life, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and those other life aspects, life is a little bit sweeter. Life is a little bit sweeter. And then we start to live life in a more healthier way. We can attend to ourselves in a healthier way. We can enjoy life in a happier, joyous, healthier way. So there's some things I want to share with you about getting back on track. And so if you want to listen to the recording, you can find it on my YouTube station. So you can go and have a little bit of a look. And I want to thank you again for watching in, for listening in. And if there's anything I can support you in, please do contact me. And also check out my website and see what else might be on there to support you. So thanks very much, and talk to you again very soon. See you.